Alright, so previously we finished off with the primary and secondary y-axis. In this video, we're going to go through the x-axis, which is going to be the time and date axis for the time series visual. As always, within the sample report, you already have a pre-configured variation of the chart that you can play around with. But for us, we're going to go to the training view and actually build a visual and go through the settings step by step. So first things first, as always, add an instance of the time series visual. Go for the formatting options, disable the background and title. And as for the setup, let's just add new date. And for the series, let's add payout. There you go. Now, going into the formatting options, let's find the x-axis. And you can see that it's being enabled by default. If you want to disable it, there's always an option to do that, but it doesn't make really a lot of sense on the time series because you can't see the date or the time. So let's just enable it and open up the formatting options for it. So first settings that you have here are going to be regarding the font styling. So those are going to be the font color, family, style, size, and so forth. Afterwards, you have your initial and minimum width for the units. What it means is you can control how big the actual categories for the units are going to be displayed as. So for example, you can see that right here, I have minimum unit width of 1. So it allows the visual to find the right width for all the columns so that I have all the data visible within a single view. If I go here and change this to, for example, 100, and if I now switch between the pages to reload the chart, you can see that I no longer have all the data visible. I only have, in this case, last 6 years of data. If I move the chart to the right, I can still find that data, but essentially this is meant to allow you to fine-tune that zoom level and only showcase what's relevant at a given time. Now, if we go back to the formatting options right here, open up x-axis, you can see that the next one is going to be the grid lines. So these are going to be vertical grid lines that are distinguishing higher periods of time. So for example, in this case, you can see that we have a yearly granularity, but the x-axis has a grid line right here because it distinguishes between periods of 5 years. Now, the grid lines can also be customized a little bit. You can customize the style, the width, and the color of them. And you can also afterwards start to work with the x-axis a little bit more in detail. So first things first is you can adjust the time zone for display. By default, we're always converting the timestamps that you get within the Power Query into the UTC+0 standard. If you want, you can also switch this to a local time zone, which is just going to adjust those few hours back or forth depending on where you're located. Now, some of the new features that we added for the visual are going to be dynamic all data and current time. So first, how it was before the dynamic all data. When it's disabled, what happens with the chart is I'm actually going to decrease back to 0, switch the pages so that the visual is reloaded to the full extent. There we go. So without the dynamic all data, what happens is if I'm using an external slicer for the time series, you can see that it just physically cuts off some of the data. And it's not going to rearrange itself or resize the columns. So you're kind of left off with a cutout version of it. If we go back to the formatting options, I'm just going to quickly get these back to the initial state. There we go. Now let's go to the formatting options, x-axis, and let's enable dynamic all data. Once I enable this, whenever I use an external slicer, so for example, if I cut off a couple of years from the front, you can see that regardless of how many years I still have left, they're going to get a resize being applied to them. So the chart now always tries the best width for the columns so that it fills in the most space. So this is the dynamic all data. The other option that we added right here under the x-axis is called current time. So if we scroll down to the bottom right here, you can see you can enable current time. What it does is it enables a straight vertical line, which showcases the exact time for today, so you can quicker identify where exactly it's located. In this case, you can see that I have a pink color for the series, so it's really hard to read that value. So I'm just going to go to the series configuration, and I'm going to change the fill color to, for example, the dark blue. So now it's a little bit easier. But these are the functions that you can and features that you can use for the time series visual on the x-axis to achieve more. All right, that's going to be it for the x-axis customization, and I'll see you in the next video.